Hi guys, this is Sophia. This tutorial is going to show you how to paint some different types of wildflowers. I'm using gouache, but you can also use watercolor. They're pretty similar. I'll also need my palette. I'll need some various size brushes. I'm mostly going to be using a very tiny brush. I'll need some water and some paper towels. So I'm going to start with a lime green color and just draw a thin stem and then kind of a V shape at the end. And then I'm going to color that in with that green color. Then I'm going to take a yellow color and fill in the top portion of that V with yellow. Then I'm going to get a little bit darker of a green and add some darker tones at the very bottom of that V. Next, I'm going to take a dark pink color and just draw a bunch of lines coming out from that in every direction. Then I'm going to take a lighter shade of pink and draw more lines behind that and make it nice and full. Now I'm going to be using a light violet color, which is pretty much just purple mixed with a little bit of white. And I'm going to be doing little clumps of dots. So I'm just doing like 5 or 6 dots all in a little clump and kind of spread those out. Then I'm going to take a darker purple and do a few dots on top of that just to add some depth. And then I'm going to do a couple darker dots around them as well and just add some different values. Then I'm going to take a dark green and connect all of those together. So I'm just drawing little lines coming down from each of the flower clumps and forming a stem. Now I'm just going to draw a single petal. So I'm using that same light violet color and I'm doing kind of a tear shaped and just filling that in with the light lavender. Then I'm going to take a darker purple and fill in the corner of that and add some lines coming up so that it's darker at that corner and lighter at the ends. Then I'm just going to do some leaves to fill in some gaps and empty space. So I'm just doing a few squiggly lines all connected together at the bottom. For the next one, I'm going to be sticking with that same purple. And I'm just going to make 6 petals. So I'm just doing kind of really thin petals with like a jagged edge. Then again, I'm going to add some darker purple at the center. And add my stem and a leaf, and it's done. This time I'm going to start with a stem, so I'm just doing a long, thin, curved line. And then I'm going to be doing kind of like a single petal again. So that tear shape, fill it in, and then add some darker pink at the bottom. And then I messed up and I smeared it here, but you can easily fix it with watercolor or gouache by taking a clean paintbrush and then go over that spot with a just clean water and clean paintbrush, and then dab it up with a paper towel. You might have to do it a few times, but it should pick up that color. So I'm going to start with my stem again, add a leaf, and then I'm going to start with a yellow center of the flower. And I'm just going to do some blue stems sticking out of that, so I'm just doing a bunch of lines coming out from that yellow center. Now I'm just going to do some leaves. So I'm going to do a long thin stem with a light green color, and then just do some classic teardrop leaf shapes coming out from that on either side. Okay, now I'm going to use a light brown color and do some really thin lines branching off from each other. So I'm just starting with one squiggly line and then adding some more squiggly lines coming out from that. Then I'm going to take a pink color and just do some circles at the end of each stem. Next, I'm going to take a darker pink and outline kind of just half of them to make it look like some shadow. And just adding a few leaves in between for some filler. Alright, so starting with a dark green stem and a leaf. Then I'm going to take a dark purple color and I'm going to do 4 teardrop shaped petals. So I'm starting with 2 directly across from each other and filling those in. And then I'm going to do the other 2 directly across from each other as well. And that's how you can get them kind of evenly spread out. And then again, I'm going to take a darker purple and fill in the middle and add some lines. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a yellow center. Again, just gonna do a single petal just to kind of fill in that space. All right, so again, starting with the stem and a leaf. Then I'm gonna take my yellow and I'm gonna draw a half circle. So kind of like an upside down moon. I'm gonna take my pink and draw some petals only coming downwards. So I'm only filling in half of the petals. So it looks like this flower is looking upwards at the sun. Okay, now I'm going to draw a single flower without any stem. So I'm starting with this kind of upside down V shape, and then doing 2 smaller petals on either side, and then 2 larger petals on the top. And this type of flower is called an iris. So then I'm just gonna fill that in, and I'm gonna make it darker on the inside and lighter on the outside of the petals. Next, I'm going to draw a couple ferns. So I'm just starting with 2 thin lines and then drawing a bunch of lines coming out from that. Now I'm going to paint a bunch of really skinny lines and a bunch more emerging out of that. So just a bunch of lines branching out from one another. Then using yellow, I'm going to do a bunch of tiny little dots at the end of each of those stems and kind of just bunch them together in groups, keeping the dots nice and little. And just drawing some more filler leaves. So now I'm starting with 1 long skinny stem and 2 long skinny leaves coming out from either side of that. Then I'm going to take my dark purple and do a bunch of dots along that stem. So similar to the previous flower, except for it's just 1 stem this time. I'm blowing on it to dry it. And then I'm going to take a lighter purple, so I just mixed it with some white, and then do some more dots on top of those. Just keeping them close together and right on top of that stem. And switching back to a lighter shade of green, I'm going to do one long arch. And then draw a few lines coming out, and then a few leaves on either side. I'm going to rotate that pattern. So I'm going to do 2 little lines and then 2 little leaves. Then I'm going to do little red circles on the ends of those little stems. I'm going to leave some white space to make it look like a reflection. This is kind of like little cherries. Then using that same red color, I'm just going to add some veins all the way up and through the leaves. Alright, so starting with another long stem. I'm going to take a dark purple color and just do some lines like swooping downwards from that. And again, I'm rotating sides and just adding some more curved lines all the way to the top. Then I'm using a lighter shade of purple and going over that a little bit to give it some highlights. So next I'm gonna again start with a really thin line and do a bunch of lines coming out from that base stem. Then using whatever color you want, I'm just gonna do a bunch of little circles at the end of each one of those lines or stems. And for the last flower, I'm using kind of a muted brownish green tone for the stems, adding 2 leaves on either side. And then I'm also going to do two or three leaves up at the top as well. Then I'm going to be doing a bunch of tiny little dots, forming kind of this circle shape. And then taking a darker blue and filling in even more. And then a darker purple as well, and adding some more dots. And I decided to go over it with a little bit darker of a green. Going over those leaves underneath the flower as well. And then I'm going to add a little bit of green within the flower too. So just a couple dots of green within that flower. And for the finishing touch, I'm just going to do a couple leaves in between some flowers just to fill in some blank space. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned some fun new techniques and that you like how your flowers turned out. See you next time.